On this episode of Locked On Avalanche, the Avs did it, Kyle. They won the Stanley Cup. No, they just won a game. Finally, they did it. Let's talk. It was interesting. It was interesting. They did not make it easy for themselves. Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on social media, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X. Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. When you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast, like we will do a little bit later to get their thoughts on the Avs' first win of the season. In exciting fashion, maybe frustrating fashion at some points of this game, many points of this game, I should say, but they get the win in overtime. So at least you knew they were not going to have zero in the points column anymore, but that didn't matter. Like you needed that win. You needed that extra point. Anaheim ties it with 12 seconds to go in regulation in a game that was dominated from beginning to end by the Avalanche. And if that isn't a microcosm of how this season has gone, even though it is very young, that was it. That was just, it was total domination. I'll bring up the stats in a second, but the Avs were close to 50 shots on goal, while the Ducks had around 20. And it was there was many frustrating things, but that was one of them. It was just, they could not get a thing past Lukas Dostal, which I want to give him his kind of stick taps right away, because that was incredible. That was like the Sharks game at Mackenzie Blackwood from last year, where they were just peppering him with everything and he was stopping everything. But for you're hearing a lot about John Gibson in trade rumors coming to the Avalanche, right? You're hearing that there's chirps of it. Who knows if it's actually going to happen? Performances like that from Lukas Dostal could have the Ducks say, like, okay, fine, we'll part with Gibson. That's if he's going to play like that, it makes it a little bit more palatable for them to trade him. But thoughts on the game? Lots to talk about with it. Go ahead.
When you mentioned frustration in this game, the visualization of this game was, you ever watch those nature documentaries and you see the little baby bird like try and get out of the nest, and it like falls and it's like, come on, baby bird, you're not going to make it, and it finally flies. That was the third period of this game. That, like,
it really was the whole game, but you're right. The third period was just, they were on a power play the entire time.
Everybody turned in that third period. Everybody woke up. Like, Georgiev looked stellar towards the end. Even though he let up that late goal, he was in the right position, making the right spots. He wasn't crumbling under the pressure. I mean, a 6-on-4 with Alexander Georgiev, which you had the first 4 games, that's just go ahead and count me out. But he stood up. The defense looked good. Positioning looked good. The forwards, 50 shots, almost 50 shots. And you talked about the frustrations, the puck in the net, calls and no calls, like back-to-back penalties. There were a myriad of things to get frustrated with, and the Avs kept pushing. Something we have said this entire time. Avalanche put together a 60-minute game. They did that and then some in overtime. This was what we have been wanting, and even though it's one game, this was the first game that we get to see the Colorado Avalanche that we know.
Yeah. And it was, even though you were dominating this game, it was no guarantee. You were trailing going into the third.
Yep.
And just with the way the season has gone, you were kind of like, man, even though they're playing well, even though they should be up in this game, That's what makes hockey so great and so frustrating, because, the team that's in command can sometimes lose these games. And you were just wondering, how is this game going to go in the third? And they just really, they cranked, they were dominating in periods 1 and 2, and they cranked it up even more in the third. This is just the difference of where these two teams are right now overall. And I say that knowing full well the Avalanche did not win, have not won a game since, until this moment, but they were clicking. They were Ross Colton loves being on that top line. It's not where he's going to be if this team gets healthy, but he fits right in very nicely. Casey Middlestat continues a hot start. He's looking fantastic right now. 4 goals in 5 games. It was what you wanted to see, but again, I mean, it was in the back of my head of how is this going to happen going into the third? And then when Anaheim ties it, you're like, we are just not destined to win a game this season for some reason. But you had a great overtime period too. And some people think overtime's getting a little bit stale.
This one.
not really. I understand why people think that. But this one was great.
Yeah.
This was some good back and forth, some really good chances for the Avs. You had Gerard ring one off the post. Mikko Rantanen with a wraparound that he just couldn't get full the full blade on it. And then Nathan MacKinnon just says, I'm going 1-on-3. I know time's running out. We might not have many more chances here. I'm just going to do it. And I can guarantee you Greg Cronin, head coach of the Ducks, is going to look at that play and say, how can our 3 guys, all of our guys on the ice, let that man do that to us? They just stood around and went. I don't know if they were gassed or what, but he just went through all 3 guys on the defensive end for the Ducks and scored the game-winning goal. Who else but him? And it was great. It was great.
And everything that we were saying about the Islanders game probably being one of the worst games we have seen the Avalanche play, I think this third period was one of the better periods I've seen in like Avalanche hockey in a while. Like, that was a dominant pressure performance, and you got to see like heads up plays from like Calvin DeHaan, Miles Wood, Sam Girard, usually like the butt of the joke and the fingers that get pointed at when things go wrong. I understand it's not the greatest performances game to game, but you saw everybody pitching in, and we saw individual performances in all of the first 4 games, and you saw the team passing it around and starting to understand where everybody was. And Shillington wasn't in the lineup either. And you get to see a lot of things really blending together. And and I think we have a solidified 2C.
Oh my God, yeah. That's not even a question. He is entrenched there right now.
He is him.
Yeah. We knew that was, or we were hoping that was going to be the thing. It's working out very nicely right now. Let's get a quick break in, and then because while we're singing the praises, because they did end up winning, there were a couple things that just, I don't want to say they were minor because they could have been huge, but there were a few things that did not go the Avalanche way, and they kind of, did they shoot themselves in the foot? Yeah, at the end with penalties, but they got out with a win, so I think we're a little bit happy about it. But there is something, the whole thing with the goals and stuff like that, the first couple that the Ducks got, I want to mention those. So let's do that. We'll get a quick break and we'll talk about that on the other side. All right. So, things were not starting out well for the Avalanche in this game. After 1, they were down 2-0. And the 2 goals were again going back to the well of, is this just how things are going to be for the Avalanche this year? The first goal, I was sitting there watching, like, why is the whistle not blowing? Like, there's just almost everybody on the ice is just hovered over Georgiev, and then all of a sudden the Ducks start celebrating, and the ref calls a good goal. And I'm like, how is that possible? And it really was, because the puck was never covered. It really wasn't. It was sitting there. You have to give the ref some credit there for, he's standing right there behind the goal. He can see it, and he sees that it's just kind of hovering in thin air, and it's not being covered. And I'm not saying the Avalanche stopped playing, but it was just who's going to punch this in what direction first. And the Ducks got to it first. That's their first goal. Talk about that one, then we'll talk about the one against the net.
I very much was just like you, sitting there like, why are they not calling this dead? Why is this still going? And along with I had altitude going, I was listening to the commentary. Mm-hmm. They also were confused until you got that overhead shot.
Yeah.
And then everybody was quiet, and then business as usual. But also up until that time, that's one goal on, I believe, 3 or 4 registered shots. So
yeah.
So
and I don't really put that on it. I mean, that's just a ton of traffic there. He's trying, he does what a goalie does in that situation, and you just kind of sprawl around. You just hope the puck finds its way underneath you somehow, and the ref blows a whistle.
Yeah, and
those are tough. Those are tough plays to really kind of be in command of everything that's going on, because it's just chaos.
Yeah, and I bring that up because that's also we didn't win the game at that point. And at that time, you're still coming off those 4 games. You look up at the scoreboard, you're already you're double-digit shots, and you let up 1 goal on 3 or 4 shots. And everybody kind of sits back a little bit after figuring out why that was not called dead. And you're like, oh, it's going to be more of this. And everybody sits back for just a little bit.
And then it was more of that, because with the second goal, the Ducks just throw it into the zone. It clearly hits the netting. And Girard sees it, and he points up, and the whistle doesn't blow. And Girard, for everybody is so mad at the refs for this, and I get that. And I am like, they missed it. Mm-hmm. They flat out missed it. But the Ducks dump the puck into the zone. Yeah, it hits the net, and they go make a change, and so do the Avalanche. So Sam Girard is sitting there with the puck for a solid 4 seconds, 5 seconds, with nobody around him. So fine, if you're upset about it, what would have happened? It would have just been a face-off, and we all know the Avalanche are not very good at face-offs, although in this game they were. I think they won 61% of the face-offs. What? What is that? Anyway, but I mean, this is in the first period, so you really haven't dominated that face-off number yet. But anyway, my point is, what's going to happen? There's going to be a face-off, and you have 50-50 chance of winning that. It's essentially like you won the face-off because Sam Girard is just standing there with nobody around him while both teams make a change. And then what does he do? He kind of just and I know there was some confusion, and I'm sure he's thinking, are they going to blow the whistle? Why did they not blow why didn't they blow the whistle? Somebody said there was a ref who was acting like he was going to put his hand up. Bottom line is, no whistle blew. But what Sam Girard did was he just skated a couple strides and just effortlessly just kind of flung the puck up against the boards. Anaheim intercepts it in the neutral zone. They come back, shot on goal, juicy rebound that they get for their second goal. Everybody's mad at the refs for this. And again, I get that. I'm more mad at Sam Girard for doing what he did when it really wasn't. And that was right at the end of the first period. That's how you end like the first period, and you're like, what is going on in the world of Colorado Avalanche hockey?
It was, for everything that you just said, I completely agree. Like, you play to the whistle, and everybody did not play to the whistle, and Sam Girard took it to the nth degree. But again, I think this was one of those moments that unfortunately happened right before the intermission, because then you go in there for a Bednar talk, and that, I'm very sure that was a fired up locker room on everything to this point, to this moment. Are you guys really going to play like this? Are we going so far backwards in regression of our play that we're not even playing to the whistle now? And this is what you get. You want to talk about every mistake we make goes in the net. Well, yeah, this is a clear mistake, and it clearly goes in the net, and it's on you. This isn't on mistake or puck luck. This is your inability to play the game to a basic level. And you saw the team take a step up in that second, culminate in that third, and in overtime. I think we can look back at that error from Girard as the turning point of waking up the Avalanche.
It could have been. I mean, you don't know. I honestly feel like, I don't think Bednar really probably got fired up in the locker room. I think he might have just went in there and just been like, guys, we're crushing them. Let's just continue to play our game. We continue to play our game, and we'll win this thing. And if you noticed, he was the first one out. He was out on the bench before anybody else talking to the refs about that. So I feel like maybe, that goes a long way for players. So our coach, the head coach is usually the last one out. Our coach went out there first to figure out what's going on. Like that, all right, he's got our back for this. And the rule is kind of fluky. You can challenge it, but once it leaves the zone, you can't. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't get that. I don't like that. Because hockey's a continual sport. Like, why are we going to say as soon as it leaves the zone, then that didn't happen? No, that it very much happened. Like, they don't think they do that on an offsides. If there's an offsides and play goes and goes and goes, and then it leaves the zone, do they not challenge the offsides?
I think so, because that it erases like a zone entry in possession and it just resets it.
Yeah. Okay. I want to. If that's the case, I don't like that either. I don't know. And I have feelings on that, but either way, they couldn't challenge it because it left the zone. But I think it was self-inflicted by the Avalanche for how Sam Girard just effortlessly just threw the puck away. And he had guys, like, you were changing. You had guys on fresh guys, and I don't know why you just didn't, start an offensive possession. He decided to flick the puck into the neutral zone for whatever reason. And the other part was, at the end of the game, the Avalanche finally take the lead. They battle and battle and battle, and they finally take the lead. And then you get 2 penalties right at the end. I think both of them, one of them came, I think, around in 6 minutes and change, if I'm not mistaken. And the other one came like right after that one ended with, I think in between 2 minutes, 30 seconds and 3 minutes. So they were really close to each other back to back. Come on, guys. Like, they're hard. Well, the Miles Wood one was, he's fighting in front of the net, knocked the guy's stick out of his hand. That was a guy holding it a little bit loose, seemed like it, but they called the penalty. And the other one, I think, was a trip on was it a car? Yeah. So you're shooting yourself in the foot. You killed them. You killed the penalties, but Anaheim still scored because you were dog tired at the end of 2 penalties in a row.
Yeah, and that it shows a lack of discipline in that moment. But of course, you need some in-season seasoning to kind of acclimate past those. But you expect that rust to be knocked off in a couple games. But yeah, that was boneheaded back to back, and it could have been worse than it was. Thankfully, the Avs escaped as they did.
Yeah, I mean, and those were the quote unquote bad, if you want to say the bad. That was the penalties were definitely the bad. The Girard thing was just a weird thing. I didn't like how he handled that. Outside of that, man, I thought everybody played a really good game. Yeah, I thought Georgiev was fine. He had those 2, well, the one fluky goal and the other one, and the one at the end, I would have loved for him to save that because the arena is buzzing. You make one more save and we don't have to deal with this overtime stuff. But I thought Parker Kelly played a really good game. I thought he was everywhere.
Yeah.
He had a breakaway that I think they called a penalty on. Like, he got held. So he almost had a breakaway shot. Ross Colton is just doing his thing on that top line. 2 goals for him. Logan O'Connor was everywhere. Miles Wood was everywhere. MacKinnon was just, he was buzzing. You could tell he was feeling it. Middlestad's doing what he's doing. Kovalenko is becoming a favorite player of mine. I love this guy's play on both ends of the ice. I thought the depth line was good. And then on D, you didn't have Taves again, so he's still out. And Ludwig replaced Shillington, and I thought he was good. Malinsky had a great game defensively. And offensively. He was making some moves out. Last year we were making fun saying like, oh, he's baby Kale.
Yeah.
He was making some shimmy moves. He was getting some looks on trying to find some shooting lanes, but defensively he had some good poke checks. Like, he was great. He was awesome.
And it saw some special teams time too.
He did in the second unit. You're right. Yep. Definitely did.
And Mikko had the speed on that wraparound attempt. I thought that was an incredible and going back to your comment on Georgiev and having that save right at the third, if he would have made that with the crowd buzzing like they were, that would have been another turning of the page for Georgiev going into the next game, like the end of that Winnipeg game 1.
Yeah.
I feel like if he would have nailed that save and they would have at least tied it or at least won going
Yeah.
in regulation, I
Mhm.
think that would have been a pivotal moment to like start to shift the narrative on Georgiev, because there was a lot of boo birds going early in the crowd when Georgiev's name was announced
Mhm.
and any time he touched the puck. So towards the end, seeing the arena standing and clapping for him, if he would have
Rocky
nailed that,
4.
oh, I
Rocky
was
4.
I was sitting here just going like, "Come on, man, come on!"
Yeah.
And he let it in, and the rest is history.
I think for an individual moment, maybe it does that, but I think he and the Avs are looking at this as what's his progression been since
Mm,
game 1, and it's improved, no doubt about it. It's not where it needs to be. I mean, people are going to hone in on the save percentage,
yep,
and he only had an 850 save percentage, and I get that. And you want to be above that. Everybody loves that 900 number. You always want to be above that.
we're the worst in the
He's not yet.
league.
He's not yet, right? So, but I think the Avs would look at it as like, hey, he's getting better, and he has,
Yeah.
from game 1. So let's just hopefully see that continue. Will he play the next game? I mean, you don't want to be doing this to him. It's kind of, they're kind of in the same boat they were last year with him, because you want to play him so he gets into that flow of playing frequently, but you also don't want to wear him down, and this is what we have. So we're here again. Does he play in San Jose on Sunday? We'll see.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 because he finally now the hot hand, and then he goes out and lays an egg against San Jose, and then the conversation is, why are we playing Georgiev so much?
Right.
It's a no-win situation.
Right. So what does this win do? Is it just a win and you just have to, you get that little bit of a monkey off your back, or does this really just get the Avs back into like the driver's seat, so to speak, and take off from there? Let's talk about that coming up next. All right, so the Avalanche get their first win in overtime fashion, exciting fashion, over the Anaheim Ducks, 4-3. First win of the season, and like I asked, is this the jumping off point? Is this where they can turn and say, okay, we got all that talk out of the way, but we still are 1-4-0. Like, we still have a lot of work to do. Can you kind of, when you're kind of like looking back on the season, is that the game? Is like, hey, that first win really just kind of set them in motion of how this team can play, because you saw how this team can play even without all those guys that they are without. This was more a Colorado Avalanche hockey game, and I know the opponent is not they're not an opponent that can really play with you. But I think that goes out the window when the way you talk about how the Avalanche have been playing recently. But is that it? Is this where you kind of get back to normalcy in terms of watching Colorado Avalanche hockey?
I would say yes, because I was thinking about this today at work when I should be doing my job. I'm not. I'm thinking about hockey.
No,
Uh,
that's your job. Is
yeah,
thinking about
you're
hockey.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
So I look back, this is not it. I think this is magnified because it's the beginning of the season. The Avs have lost
Sure.
2 games in a row, 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row, and more. It's happened before. And we weren't having these conversations on how bad everything is. No, the Avs turned it around last year. They did before that, the year before that, and they will continue to. And guess what? They might have another 3-game losing streak, and they'll right the ship. But they needed this one. And you could build on it going against San Jose, which probably will not be that much of a problem. But you needed these emotions in the locker room, especially when Nathan MacKinnon is talking about, why can't we have a healthy team? And you're hearing the frustration come out in these sound bites. You know it was bothering the team. Now that they got this done, now we could get back to business and keep building as a team.
Your next 3 games are on the road: San Jose, Seattle, and Utah. So that's your first matchup with them in Utah. And a lot of times that's where teams, come together.
Yep.
Is on the road. A couple of years ago, they had that 5-game
Yep.
road trip, and they won them all.
I was going to bring that up to you. Yep.
Yeah. So like you sometimes you do need to get on. It's lovely to be home, but sometimes road trips you get away from all of the chaos of being at home and all the chatter at home, and you go out and just can focus on the hockey. Those are winnable games, and you know how I like Utah this year. But you can, if you go out and you can dominate San Jose, get a win in Seattle, and then finish that off in Utah, your next 3 games after that are home. Ottawa, Chicago, and Tampa Bay, and that finishes off the month.
They need to get back to winning because they're 1-3 at home right now. Like they need to get away from there. It's a stinky place. Just get back to winning and then go back home and start winning there.
Exactly. Let's get over to subtext. Excuse me. Who's this? Excuse me. There we go. It's late. I'm getting all choked up after this win.
Yeah, it's been so long.
I know.
Won the game since last year.
I know. Tanya, she says, I'm too dizzy to think straight. How was that game 5 and I'm this wound up? You'd think it was playoff time. Exciting hockey. Couldn't help but laugh to hear Mosier say he was going to puke. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I think we all felt that. She goes, I know I did. Ready to move on and forget games 1 through 4. Bring on the Sharks. Yeah, he said that after Sammy G hit one off the post, or it might have been the crossbar or whatever, in overtime. And then here come on the other way come the Ducks, and he's like, I think I'm going to puke. I thought that was a brilliant call.
Yeah,
but she's right. That was playoff atmosphere, believe it or not.
It was.
Yep.
The fans and the team were desperate for that win.
Oh my God. Absolutely. Cody says, best win of the season because it's the only win of the season. So not much competition. And admittedly, I was about to blow a gasket when it became 3-3 for overtime because I made a joke about the exact situation to someone yesterday. And I was like, oh no. But obviously they come out and win it. So yeah, we did there, Cody.
Oh, Cody. Cody, you wrote the script.
Oh my God. Craig says, happy the Avs were able to overcome the missed calls by the refs. I think it was a total team effort. I think if the Avalanche lost this game, people are going in on the refs hard, real hard. But it's that you won it, so we'll have a little bit leniency here. But if it was the other way around, people would not be happy.
Yeah. You know what? The ice also played a factor too. We didn't even bring up the ice and not being able to keep the nets on.
Yeah, what was up with that? I don't know. Yeah, they had to bring out the drills and everything for it. So, and then Brandon said that OT was about to give me a heart attack. It's great to get a win and the monkey off our back. What's he gonna? He was gonna do "End of the Night" by Dropkick Murphys.
Ooh.
For his sound check. So, which is what we got to get to right now. So we'll do our sound check, and that's where Kyle and I pick one song each that we feel best summarizes the most recent game. Put these songs over on a playlist on Spotify, which you can search for and follow. Just look for LOA Sound Check. This one is volume number 4. So what do you got for this, sir?
Do.
Oh God.
You have to go with the overtime winner would be Nate Dogg. You have to go with the classic Regulate with Warren G and Nate Dogg. It's a vibe.
Okay.
And honestly, it's with this win, building off of this is what you want. This feels like the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Like this is the vibes you need. Throw this song on. When you hear it, you're like, So this is your bookmark. The first Avs win. This is your audio bookmark right here.
Love it. It's funny because in subtext, Kay wrote in just said hallelujah from winning the game. And then Craig right after that said, hallelujah, that can be my sound check.
Oh,
so why not? I don't know which version. You got to give me a version.
Jeff
Craig.
Buckley.
Buckley's the best one, but there's a lot of them. So, which one do you want? So, and then who was the other one that, Zach said Till I Collapse by Eminem is his sound check.
You have no idea how close I was to putting that up there.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, we think Avs fans think alike. For me, man, I'm going with one of the best baseball movies ever is obviously The Sandlot. And if you remember the classic, so many classic scenes in that movie, when Squints pulls the fast one and he acts like he's drowning so Wendy Peppercorn can kiss him, and when he holds her head to get the kiss, the song This Magic Moment starts playing, and it's just perfect. Like, and that is what I'm going with, because I almost want someone to edit together as soon as Nathan MacKinnon scores that goal, play that song. Play This Magic Moment, because it's exactly what it was. We're celebrating this thing like it is. I joked at the beginning that it's like it's a Stanley Cup win, but it is, and it shouldn't be. But we're gonna do this now. We're gonna celebrate it like it is, and then we're gonna get back to work because this team is expected to win multiple games this year, not just one. But for now, it's a magic moment. So I'm going with Jay and the Americans. This magic moment, and you can all think of Squints kissing Wendy Peppercorn when the song plays.
That's clutch. That's great.
Classic.
Great job.
Classic. We don't do enough of the classics in the sound check, so we should get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
All right.
Mozart.
Oh God. Yeah. What are those names? Aren't they like just numbers and stuff? Like,
yeah. Well, he just released a song this year, so
stop it.
He did.
What did like Timbaland?
No, they found one of his old songs on a wall. They released it.
No, really?
Oh yeah, look it up.
Listen to that. All right, everyone. That is going to wrap it up for today on this Saturday episode. So, yeah, enjoy the rest of the weekend, which you can enjoy most of it until the Avalanche play again on Sunday, and it's right back to Stress City. But until then, thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And guess what, folks? You just got through another day, 24 hours. Sidney Crosby's closer to becoming a Colorado Avalanche.
We don't suck.
He wants to come here.